Are you scared and scream when somebody enter your bedroom or your bank account? Why you don't scream when somebody's getting to your private health information?
Welcome to another edition of Professor Speaks. My name is Alex Hernandez. Alongside me, as always, is Dr. Craig Stern. And our topic for today is privacy of healthcare information, as well as the security measures being applied to your healthcare information. And a special guest today here with us is Vladimir Romanenko. He's our Pro Pharma VP of Information Technology, and Pro Pharma security expert Armand Taturian. Hello, Armand. Say hello to everybody.
Hello. Glad to join everyone.
Alrighty, and we're going to start off today. Craig, you had a comment you wanted to start
I do. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to just quickly introduce this. Neither Alex or I are experts in security, which is why we have some of the Pro Pharma team here with us in order to do it. But a common question that is asked when people ask about our analytics or things that we're doing is, what are you doing to protect my data? And that leads to the fear that all information technology people have and all clients is that you're going to be a cowboy and you're going to take our data and do something. Now, what we've done is not unique or entirely different than others have done in well-designed, well-run systems, but we thought it was important, the entire staff thought it was important, that we talk to you about security and privacy so that you could understand what are the modes that people use, because frequently people see that people are being hacked or issues with regard that they've lost data and things like that. So the question is, what do professionals do to try and minimize that problem? You can never do it entirely, but certainly you want to do it. So we've invited Vlad, we've invited Armand to be part of it. They're part of the Pro Pharma team, but we want to make sure that we are dealing with these problems and addressing it.
Right. So, Vlad, why don't you start us off? We're talking about privacy of healthcare information. What does that actually mean to, say, the normal average person? The average person is going on the street. They're not really thinking about their healthcare information being violated. So, what's going on in that realm?
We all believe that our personal private information is always secure. But when you're looking on a big scale of electronics these days, privacy is more than just the electronics. We want to know who is holding the information, who is handling information, receiving, sending, working with data. Most important part of the privacy is Act of Privacy Act of 96, which called HIPAA, and that will set basic guidelines to all of us who working with personal information, health information, on a daily basis. Most important, what is the private information? What is considered PHI, personal health information? It's the first name, last name, social security, age, sex. That's number one. Number two, what is the status of the healthcare provider putting in that information? And the last one is the payment. Payment, which is considered, is very crucial part of the personal health information, which is called EFT, electronic fund transfer. Must be protected under PHI, because that's where is the very sensitive information is coming.
But I think what the people want to know is more like that we understand we don't want people knowing about our private personal information, but what can people use it for?
Oh, that's just
exactly.
wild. The hackers, as we know, been around since the internet is on. And when they get your information, they will use it against you no matter what. But more important part of the conversation, how you want to guard it. Because sometimes it's just your personal information, but your health information is more private than just the pictures from the Facebook or internet.
Let me interrupt for a second. As a clinician, and an analyst, what we hear all the time is that one, people want to make sure that their medical record and their medications that they take are kept secret. Why? Many people don't want people who they work with or private people to know that they have cancer, perhaps they have AIDS, concerns perhaps with regard to behavioral health problems. They don't want people to know that they have major depressive disorder or psychosis. So there's a real concern about trying to protect yourself, protect your family in this information.
And also, I think Em wanted me to bring up was her favorite episode on Grey's Anatomy had where the hackers hacked the hospital for all the PHI and all the healthcare information and held the hospital for ransom for, protecting that information, keeping it for themselves, and not letting the hospital have access to it. So it's another dangerous route hackers can go.
Exactly. That's why I say the personal record, including financials, that's where is this whole hacking situation is happening, because they want your money. They want your money. They want to know what you spend, how much you spend, because price on the drugs these days is up to the sky.
Right.
The other thing that's important is, on one level, they may use the information against you personally or against you as an organization. But there's also the concern that once they get your important information, then they can start billing like you. They can start putting through bills so that they can use that information in order to say, I'm really Vladimir Romanenko, and as a result of that, I'm going to buy whatever I'm going to buy, and the money then is going to go towards Vladimir, not to them.
And when they get the actual drugs when under my name, then they will sell to the black market. The possibility is endless. That's why we have security in place in this in Pharma.
The perfect segue for our security expert.
Exactly, and I think Armand will be explaining a little bit more what we've been carrying on for last 30 some years being in business with personal data information.
Right. So Armand, what kind of security measures are being put into place to help us from these hackers trying to get our crucial information?
Well, like Vlad touched on, these customers are entrusting you with these patients with their personal information, their health records, their medical records, their social security numbers. So, it's every health organization's job to keep that information private and secure. And in network security and data security, you don't really have one system that you can protect everything with, because every system can be taken down and penetrated. That's why you have to layer your defenses. You have to have multiple layers of security, where a first one may be your firewall, and that's your first layer from the outside world. Now, if that layer is penetrated, you have to have another layer behind your firewall, and a layer behind that second and third layer. And usually these layers are 4 or 5 key network systems, which start off with your firewall, your antivirus system, which protects your end users' computers, your passwords to all of your accounts, which are very, very critical. And last line of defense may be your backups. If something goes wrong, you always have your backups to go back and recover information from. But the key is to have multiple layers to protect your systems, and that if one layer of defense gets taken down, you have another layer. And one important layer that's not often talked about is patching your systems. And this is your Windows servers, your Windows computers, your Adobe Flash, Adobe Reader, your applications.
And to those of you at home, you might not realize it half the times when you're patching your system on a either weekly or monthly basis, when you get that new update to your phone, to your Microsoft Office, to your
desktop computers.
These are these patches that Armand is talking about. That is updating your firewall. Armand, feel free to
in your applications,
So
Windows
what
system.
a lot of home users will be surprised to hear is the last 3 or 4 years, and Verizon releases a major information security report every year that analyzes every industry. And in their report, if you look at the last 3 or 4 years, the number one thing that always breaks systems down and hackers get in through are patches that have not been applied to very common used products like Adobe Reader, Adobe Flash, and Java. Now, if you look at 90% of computers on the internet, they all have that, maybe even more than that, 95. So very, very important. When you see that Adobe Reader or Java give you a notification that it needs to be updated, go ahead and run that update. Very simple, and something very small can go a long way from keeping your system secure.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. That's a good, crucial piece of information, because without security and protection, we cannot protect the privacy of our patient, which is any ethic for all the providers we're working with.
Sure. Arman, for a very long time, you've had us changing our passwords every 3 months that we do it. Clearly, we do that. It becomes a problem sometimes trying to remember what your password is.
Especially now we have it this every 2 months, not 90 days, not 3 months. So we make it more tied up, and dual authentication for the VPN and multiple layers of security on our end and our data control center down here at Pharma, which is very important.
And help us to understand, is it enough to do a password? I mean, why is that a big deal, Arman?
Well, if you go back to the original days when the system was set up in Windows networks where administrators could force users to change passwords every 60 or 90 days or however many days they would specify. The idea behind that was if somebody else knew your password, another employee, and a few months later down the line you did not remember that you gave them your password, they could get into your account and start accessing, things that only you have access to. So that was the original idea, which is a valid idea, and you want to definitely prevent that. And changing your password every 60 to 90 days prevents someone else that knows your password from getting into your system, from a year later.
Like Vladimir entering my system and messing up a document that I've been working on. Yeah, that could happen, and you don't want that to happen.
Exactly, or someone getting into a system where it has higher privileges and changing stuff, downloading stuff. But another key aspect of changing your passwords periodically is not often talked about is we all have access to 5 to 10 accounts. We have access to bank systems, to health systems. It's a very important. The reason why all these systems ask you to change your password frequently is if you have access to 10 systems and you're changing the password 60, 90 days to all 10 of them, it's going to be very hard for you to keep the same password for every system. And the problem that resolves is if you have one password for all 10 systems, as soon as somebody, a hacker, gets your password is compromised, not only can they get into your bank account, they can get into your medical account, they can go online, they can get into every single one of your accounts. So changing your password is very important, but keeping different passwords for different systems is just as important, if not more.
And more complicated password setup on a monthly basis, changing this constantly, complicated upper lowercase, special characters, and so on. That is crucial.
Yeah, and also another thing. Oh, go ahead, Arman.
Exactly, and just to touch on what Vlad mentioned, don't use things like your birthday or your last name, nothing common, or your kids' names in a password. Use something that a hacker can never think of. And a lot of times that someone's trying to gain access to what you have access to, it may not even be a hacker. It may be someone that knows you. Someone that you're very least suspecting of. So
someone trying to be nosy. Yeah.
No, don't make it your children's names. And definitely stay away from the birthdays.
Right. And another quick thing I want to touch on is even further than just going into your password and being able to log onto your system is opening things up after you've already logged in, like email attachments. Like, what are some tips that the average viewer at home could try to avoid opening something that they're not supposed to open?
Well, I mean, you brought up a great point. Email is something that everybody uses these days, and used to be, again, a few years ago, the biggest thing was you get an attachment in your email, it's a virus, you open it, and immediately your computer's infected. Over the years, our email scanning systems have gotten much smarter and safer, so more and more attachments do not get in through emails, but some still do. So rule of thumb is when you get an email with an attachment, first of all, ask yourself, have I received this attachment from this person before? If you, for example, if you receive an attachment that says invoice, it's a Word document, but it comes from someone that you've never received an invoice from. You got to ask yourself, you got to question it. Is this really an invoice? And why would why would the flower shop send me an invoice that I've never shopped at? You got to just ask yourself common sense questions.
Armand, let me ask you a quick question. We do a lot of our analytics that are on mobile devices as well as on laptops and on desktop. Are these issues similar to what happens if someone has a tablet or an iPad?
Of course. I mean, that's even an additional subject we can go into as far as security for laptops. But again, a worker takes their laptop home and they receive email on their laptop, and they plug it into their home network and they start looking at their own personal email. They may download something that would be protected if they were at work, but at home they don't have the same protection. They may download something and it stays on their computer, on their laptop. They bring this laptop back to the office, they plug it into the network, and now you've exposed your network to something that could be very vulnerable, and it could be ransomware. We've all heard about it, where it opens and it starts encrypting everything, and
Right.
within minutes you can lose thousands of your patient's information. So it's very, very important when you take a laptop out from the network, bring it back in, make sure when you plug it in, you scan it for viruses. You don't allow your users to use their laptops for personal use. If they are, you have to give them a different laptop to use. You just have to be very, very careful in these instances.
Right. So what we want to do now is to kind of wrap it all together, because a lot of the things that Armand had said are really good, not just to protect us from our healthcare information getting hacked, is to protect us from even personal or even beyond that, all our information. So what we want to do is kind of bring it all around and just kind of remark on what's important, and just in case you haven't been taking notes at home. So what's very important is to keep updating your desktop, your laptop, your iPads, your iPhones, all phones, Android, whatever phone you got, just to keep updating those patches, because it's very important to protect yourself against new ways for hackers to try to access your information. Also, apply multiple layers of protection. That's one of the things Armand was stressing as to a way that we can protect our healthcare information is to apply multiple levels. What we've seen Microsoft start to do is this, or anybody with a VPN, is two-factor authentication, right?
Yes.
Right. And so you'll start seeing different ways for IT specialists to come up with ways.
Even personal phones, when
Right.
you try to access something, the two-factor authentication is very important to make sure you get the text back from the bank that transaction has been submitted by you, or any transaction has been accessed that information.
Exactly.
I'd also add, and this is due to what Armand has done and Vlad has done, is we have put multiple layers in our system so that effectively our data, etc., is not available to the web. So
Yeah, we don't want to tell our people at home that our layers of protection.
We won't go
if
into detail. No.
But if they're interested, they can always call us, and we can provide some additional information for our viewers at home, especially for data, because when we handle terabytes of data on a daily basis, we are responsible for this data. Make sure that nobody but the person who is supposed to be touch this data and process the information and get the reports out back to the field, or the same reports back to the patient, because we are responsible for that patient information, personal health information.
Right. And then last, probably one of the most important and the easiest thing you can do is to constantly change your password. I mean, well, easy for most of us. Sorry, Craig. But yes, you got to keep changing your password, come up with new and creative ways, and you can use this thing. It's called your phone, and they have notes in there. Is what I like to do, and you could just keep track of your passwords in there. You can rotate them out, in and out, or come up with new ways to have a password. But the key is creativity. Use special characters, capitalize, lowercase, all the above. And Armand, you got anything to add to that?
I think you said it well, and the only thing I'll add is, technology always alone is not enough, and your people are your first line of defense, and your people must follow best practice, and if they do, they can really minimize your exposure level. Because as great, as expensive, and as great the technology is, if a user emails themselves an Excel spreadsheet so they can work on it at home, and that spreadsheet gets compromised from their home system, then really your defenses couldn't do anything in that situation. And it's your users are your first line of defense.
Right. That's very important, and you can password protect your documents as well too.
Right. I think the subject of privacy and security is very large. This is our first touch, just a basic touch up to that subject. We will continue in the future, in the near future.
Yeah.
So keep in touch with us. We will answer your question if you have any.
And we'll do another one of the Facebook Lives on HIPAA and the kind of issues with regard to privacy, so we can try and put some more level of understanding in that, and especially in companies today where people are not at the particular business location, but they're all over the country, in some cases all over the world. Pharma certainly has that, and we deal with it. You have to be able to know how to handle that, how to make it secure from people that are coming into the system, as well as controlling the data within the system.
And accessibility for the clients to get into the data. That's why we don't even touch the cloud, which we provide for our customers. Cloud access to reports, all the personal information under the cloud, and it's all secure and protected by our multi-layer dual authentication system.
Right, and much like the patches that you receive on a weekly or monthly basis to update your system, we will continuously patch this video up and try to make it better for you guys to understand. So thank you very much, Vlad. Thank you, Armand. Thank you, Dr. Stern. And please, viewers at home, if you can, please visit ProPharmaConsultants.com. We have a free information page called RxInfoX. And if you have any questions or comments below, please leave them below. And if you have anything for Vlad or Armand directly, please feel free to message us directly. All right, and we will see you next week.
So, now you know. Are you ready? If not, give us a call at 888-701-5438, and we will help you to get ready.